Assalamu alaikum everyone. So welcome to today's webinar session. I am Dr. Numan Arshad. I will be starting this session for today. In this session, first of all, I will give you a brief introduction, and after that, I will hand over the webinar to Dr. Farad. She will introduce our guests, and then we'll proceed with the order of the introduction of guests. So today's session is designed to discuss the consistency of current budget with the prevailing economic conditions of the country. And in that, I will first of all welcome you all in this webinar. And first of all, we'll start with the recitation of Holy Quran. I will invite Dr. Shahid Hassan to recite few verses from Holy Quran. After that, I will give a brief introduction, and then we'll hand over to Dr. Farad. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Numan, for inviting me for recitation. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah, sir. Thank you very much. So now I will start with a brief introduction. And so first of all, I will give you our team members. The team members include Dr. Muhammad Shahid Hassan, and Dr. Imran Hanif, Dr. Faris Rasool, Dr. Numan Arshad, and Mr. Mubashir Munir. And this is the faculty members of our department. There are faculty from economics and faculty from statistics. So these are the names of the faculty members which are shown on the screen. I will start with our background of our research profile. So our library has compiled the report for year 2019 and 20, and this is the report for year 2020. And in that year, our publications were 58, which were actually a 94% increase from last year. And then this composition includes the number of papers that we have published. And our department also have two journals. And one is especially for economics, and another is specifically for statistics. And both are HEC recognized Y category journals, and both welcome relevant publications, submissions for publication. Then I will go towards our past webinars that we conducted from the platform of Department of Economics. They started from 15 May 2020, and the most recent one was 31 May 2021. So, and now we go towards today's platform. So today's webinar is actually the consistency of current budget with the prevailing economic conditions. Our guests are Dr. Bakar Ahmad, Sir Iftikhar Kutab, and Muhammad Adnan Jali. Before I hand over to Dr. Farad, I would like to share you this screen. So we have a WhatsApp group where we disseminate the information regarding our call for papers and future webinars. So I would like you to scan this QR code with your WhatsApp so you can automatically join the WhatsApp group, and you will get the latest information regarding future webinars, research opportunities, and call for papers for our journal. And I will keep it on the screen for a few minutes so that you can scan it and join the WhatsApp group. Meanwhile, I will invite Dr. Farad. So please come forward and introduce our guests and introduce the proceeding of this webinar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Numan. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as everyone is here, including the panelists and our participants, let me quickly start with the name of Allah. I warmly welcome to everyone in today's webinar. Especially, I'm most delighted to welcome our honorable and distinguished guest speakers. The budget for the financial year 2021 to 22 has been presented in the National Assembly, and there are hot debates among the researchers and scholars. That's why the Department of Economics at UMT has particularly arranged this particular topic, consistency of the current budget with the prevailing economic conditions of the country. For that, we have invited Dr. Bakar Ahmad from Sustainable Development Policy Institute, Islamabad. We have Mr. Iftikhar Kutab from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Revenue Authority. We also have Mr. Muhammad Adnan Jalil from Peshawar Chamber of Commerce, Traders and Small Industries. For a disruption-free webinar, we have few housekeeping things. First of all, mute yourself and unmute only when you are asked. Second, if you have any question, please raise your hand, and you can also drop your message in the message box. Furthermore, each guest speaker we have allocated 15 to 20 minutes, and I would like to request to the speakers, please wind up your discussion within this time. And after that, the house will be open for the question answer session. In the last of this webinar, there will be a key note of thanks and closing remarks. To continue with this webinar, let me briefly introduce our first panelist, Dr. Bakar Ahmad. He is currently serving as Joint Executive Director of Economic Growth Unit at Sustainable Development Policy Institute, Islamabad. He is serving so many international organizations like British Council Pakistan, Asian Development Bank, World Bank, United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, UNDP, whereas in Pakistan, he has been the head of macroeconomic section at the Ministry of Planning, Development and Special Initiatives, member of Energy Committee at NUST. He has also been a part of the government's advisory panel of economists since 2008 to 2015. And these days, he is a member of the working group on social sector development for the VN 2025. Today, he will talk on the budget financial year 22 and the current macroeconomic environment. So I would request to Dr. Bakar, please have your time.
Dr. Haba, thank you very much. I would first like to thank, of course, yourself, your team, Dr. Noman and colleagues for this excellent organization. I think the timing is very perfect. As you rightly said, that the budget is being currently debated, and this is the right time so that colleagues should interact. Colleagues should be more interactive on social media. They should be writing more op-eds and talking about, of course, fiscal policy as much as possible. Let me just share my screen here. I have just a couple of slides for the interest of our colleagues who have joined us online. I hope you can see these slides. So basically what I'm going to do is that I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes going through not only the various contours of the budget, but also giving more of an independent view of where we stand in terms of the macroeconomic environment. Second, this budget has a bearing on our negotiations with the International Monetary Fund. And of course, this budget, while it has to be passed by the Parliament, of course, this budget also requires at some level agreement with the IMF as well, given that we are under a fund program until the end of 2020. And then thirdly, I think how this budget would, of course, play out for the various economic players. I think I can talk about more towards, for example, job creation, livelihoods aspects, but maybe leave the private sector perspective a bit for the other colleagues. I do see the esteemed panelists who have joined us, and I think Adnan Jalil Saab is also here, who will be covering the private sector perspective. So very briefly, if you look at the current macroeconomic outlook and how it stands at this moment, we do understand that this budget was being made in the backdrop of a relatively comfortable macroeconomic environment. If you compare yourself to last year, when, for example, COVID's first wave was around and the economy was passing through COVID's first wave, and one could see how difficult it was to prepare the budget. But after that, I think the economy has recovered fairly quickly, and we are seeing a 4% economic growth rate in fiscal year 21 compared to a negative 0.5% in the previous year. And all subsectors, agriculture, industry, services, you can see have contributed positive growth rates. There's some pickup in investment rate as well, and investment growth rate was 14% during fiscal year 21. At the same time, we also see that some of the sectors in the economy are still facing challenge. Some have not opened up, some still continue to face micro or smart lockdowns, for example. And it is these sectors that we are interested in, that how can these sectors be helped through a budget, through a medium to longer term fiscal policy. And you can see that cotton has posted a negative 16% growth rate, and it has a bearing on your textile sector. Mining is a negative, electricity and gas distribution is a negative, transport is a negative. Now, all of these sectors have large shares in our overall GDP. And this is certainly a cause of concern. Having said this, of course, on the external side, on the balance of payment side, there is, of course, improvement. We are seeing some uptick in exports as Pakistan's buyers internationally open up their economies. Trade is picking up. You have seen remittances increase in an unprecedented manner, and Pakistani diaspora has added to not only remittances but investments as well. Government's own fiscal side also seems comfortable at this point, given that FBR crossed 4 trillion revenue collection mark despite of very tight COVID times. And revenue, some of the revenue measures taken by the government are now just starting to pay off the dividends. But of course, as we embrace the future waves of COVID, as we embrace delays in vaccinations, for example, or medical solutions, the pressures on the expenditure side still remain. And some of these are due to, of course, the fact that you need to sustain higher levels of social protection. There will be rounds of Ehsaas program which need to be delivered to at least people who have their livelihoods associated with sectors which haven't picked up. And then, of course, you have challenges associated with the circular debt, as well as the losses of state-owned enterprises. In this backdrop, I have 5 big messages in this presentation. First is that while, yes, budget remains an exercise where we are trying to see how to manage the government expenses going forward, one also needs to find out investment for human capital, for infrastructure, for example, for SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Second, while of course we make budgetary allocations, we are still low on efficiency in our spending. And there is room to improve efficiency of already allocated amounts. You have seen in COVID times that many of the COVID emergency funds could not be fully utilized by any of the provinces. And unfortunately, the emergency funds had to be spent fairly quickly. But given the efficiency issues, given the fact that there are budgetary delays, there is room for improvement. And in this regard, my third message is we need to learn from peer economies as well, that how are they creating space for aspects of, for example, sustainable development goals, despite of COVID-related pressures. The fourth message is that we still have large duplications across federation budgets. And I can show you provincial budgets from Punjab, Sindh, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Balochistan, many of them pursuing very similar, look good, or politically motivated projects, which could easily lead to wastages of resources. It's better to centralize, or it's better to do them as a federation than to do it in each of your provinces. And then, of course, there are risks to planning and budgeting, which need to be considered once, of course, the budget is approved. If one looks at the overall budget summary, which I have presented in front of you here, you can see that out of 8.4 trillion rupees of expenditure, the government has a net revenue receipt of only 4.5 trillion available. And other than 4.5 trillion, the government will have to meet the rest of the expenses through debt, through borrowing. So naturally, while of course there are leakages in the several forms of leakages in the economy, but you have COVID-related pressures as well, which are bound to increase the overall stock of debt in the economy. But on the expenditure side, also, if one, for example, looks at the spending, or where can we find the fiscal space for development budget for PSDP, public sector development program, you are seeing that out of 8.4 trillion, we don't even have 1 full trillion to spend on development. And the reason that you are down to 900 billion of PSDP is because almost 35% of your expenditure will go in debt servicing. And then whatever will be left will be shared in running of the civil government, defense services, law and order, so on and so forth. And whatever is then left is your development expenditure. But let me also go back to my earlier point, which was that this budget is bound to create some borrowing needs. The debt stock will increase. So one also needs to have a debt management plan going forward. And this is the deficit financing requirement, which you can see in this next slide. You would be procuring at least almost 2.5 trillion from domestic borrowing sources. You will be borrowing from the banking sector, domestic banking sector. And as economists, we know that this easily leads to crowding out as well, where of course banks are discouraged to lend to private sector because of course government is borrowing from the banks. But these borrowing needs will not be enough. So you will also have to go to the external lenders. So you can see that your external financing need will be around 1.2 trillion, which will be coming from multilateral sources, which are concessional in nature. But unfortunately, most of them, which is 877 billion rupees, will come from commercial sources, which are which have an interest rates in line with the market. And these are expensive loans, of course. So in total, your borrowing requirement in this year's budget increases by 4 trillion rupees. The revenue outlook, and I'm only considering the taxation side of the revenue. Of course, there are some non-tax revenues as well, which will be helping the budget. As I said, that it was encouraging this year to see that FBR has picked up its performance, and FBR crossed the 4 trillion revenue collection mark. In fact, they had crossed it in May. So it is going to be much higher by the time the year ends. So this is very encouraging. But if you look deeply into how FBR is collecting these taxes, you can readily see that the reliance on indirect taxes has increased and may continue to increase in the next year as well. And of course, as students of social science, we do know that any increase in indirect taxes is regressive. It has a much more impact on the poorest of the poor, the smaller enterprises in the economy. And unfortunately, this is what is happening. So if you look at the expectation from the sales tax next year, it is expected that FBR should collect 2.5 trillion rupees of sales tax in the kitty, and this is going to be really regressive. Already, there's a World Bank report which has shown that the poverty rate has touched almost 40% in Pakistan. So, which actually means that having more regressivity in your taxation structure can be very detrimental. On the expenditure side, I want to quickly look into the various heads of federal government expenditure. And at least in our proposals, we are of the view that yes, there are some expenditures which are COVID related, which you have to make in any case. However, there is still room for tightening of belt, for cutting down government expenditures. And we feel that if you look at the first one, which is general public services, if you look at, for example, from serial number 5 onwards, we see that several of these ministries and departments handling these affairs can be merged. And there are various economies which are doing it. An economy as large as UK has merged so many of its ministries during the COVID times to manage their budgets. And I think we should also follow this kind of fiscal prudence. Within the expenditure side, you see spending on subsidies, which was really increased amid COVID. And yes, COVID did provide some justification to increase these subsidies. But unfortunately, you're now seeing that subsidies are being projected to further increase in the budget. And this is not a good sign, because what this is showing is that economy's dependence on subsidies expenditure would continue to increase. Your industries or governments' dependence could also easily increase. So the general rule is that subsidies for the poorest of the poor are not bad. Subsidies for smaller firms are not bad. But then you need to have very good targeting in the system, that who is going to be the beneficiary of this subsidy, which is going to fertilizer plant, which is going to Naya Pakistan markup subsidy, which is going to wheat sector, metro bus sector, as you can see in front of yourself. Most of these subsidies suffer from the targeting issue, which is why the efficiency remains a problem. I also wanted to quickly touch upon provincial budgets, and let me just take example of the first budget which was presented. Punjab's budget came out first. So I wanted to show you the development side of the Punjab budget. You can see that most of the social sectors financing is now responsibility of the provinces after the 18th Amendment. Now, herein, I think as students of economics, we need to ask ourselves that if you go deeper into the budgets of these departments, one of the argument is that most of the emphasis is on brick and mortar. If you look at youth budgets, I'll just discuss them in a while. Most of the focus is on building stadiums, building more buildings, building youth centers where you can have some youth engagement take place, building. So there's a large focus on more construction for youth, but there's a software side to this as well. Maybe one can argue that you have decent building facilities. You don't need to invest on brick and mortar. You have idle public assets lying in, for example, so many universities around us as well. Why not utilize those assets and not invest more in brick and mortar? Instead, utilize the same resources in building capabilities and capacities, which is the software of economic growth much desired. And this is one of the arguments that oftentimes comes on the social sector budgets as well, that even in the social sector, a focus on human resource capabilities is less. And again, the brick and mortar and construction and real estate is very sort of prominent. If you look at, for example, federal government, when it comes to investing in youth capabilities, and we are, of course, virtually sitting in a university and discussing this. At a federal level, you have very limited funding through Kamyab Jawan program, which is only 5 billion rupees, and these are micro loans. But it's the provincial governments who have much larger budgets for youth, and it's those budgets which need to go in capabilities and capacities and not on brick and mortar. As I said, you have large sums like almost a trillion rupee parked with Punjab Skills Development Authority, almost a trillion rupee parked with Youth Affairs and Sports Affairs Department. And if you look at their budgets, you have a dozen gymnasiums which are being built. No doubt, yes, we would need more gymnasiums, but then of course it leaves very little room to even maintain the existing gymnasiums, for example, or invest in, let's say, training facilities within the existing infrastructure. So that's one argument that I wanted to leave in today's discussion on our provincial budgets. During the COVID times, we've also learned from the peer economies on how they are in fact managing their budgetary requirement. And I'm just moving to the last one or two slides in my presentation. The first thing that we learn is that they're really moving towards evidence-driven budgets. So staying with budgeting for youth as an example, for example, if you had to develop much more evidence-informed budget for youth, one would have required more rapid data, which wasn't available actually. So yes, you need to reform your budgetary side, but your reform of data agencies like statistical bureaus also has to go hand in hand. So the government could have offered better budget for our youth capacities or SDGs related to, let's say, our young people. If we had data on how many youth lost wage employment during COVID, or how many youth lost self-employment during COVID, where are these youth, which sectors, which regions? So given that you didn't have rapid data on your table, the budgets eventually don't become evidence driven. And then of course there's a role of monitoring and evaluation, which the planning and development departments in each province need to do. So there's a connect between planning and budgeting, which needs to be taken care of. So I go back to the same five messages which I had, which of course included the need to create fiscal space for investment in SDGs, which I showed you, the need for efficiency in already available budgets. In most cases, I don't think that we have less budgets. It's about spending efficiency. It's about those budgets reaching the beneficiaries that need to be more, that we need to be more careful about. And I think this brings me to my last slide, basically, which is that academia such as ourselves, such as yourself, can really help through, think tanks can help through this. There is literature that I would invite you to study on how social accountability tools can improve budgets at a national and at a federal level. And many of the good civil society organizations, NGOs, do work with these social accountability tools, holding the members of parliament or elected members accountable for ensuring that their constituency receives those budgets. There's also a very good practice of open budgets that citizens should be able to track through online tools, that where are my taxes being spent. And you have tracking tools which countries have shown in open budget portals. Pakistan may sign the open budget conventions soon, and I think this will bring greater clarity and alignment with the development goals, or SDGs. So I think I'll just stop over here, and thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Ma'am, we cannot hear you. Please open your mic.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bakar. You did an excellent discussion on economic growth, especially your guidelines about to create fiscal space for investment in physical and human capital in order to achieve the sustainable development goals. as well as the efficiency in spending budgets are very important. So you are talking about our survival that is possible just to increase maximum to increase the net domestic revenues as well as the external debt management. And for all that, we must learn from our peer economies. Furthermore, I think Dr. Bakar has to attend a meeting. So I would like to request the participant, if you have any question, you can ask, because after that, Dr. Bakar has to attend a special meeting. Audience, have you any question?
Please raise hand so that we can let you ask.
I think nobody has a question. Okay. We also know the indirect taxes, especially the general sales taxes, are the primary source of the tax revenues. So I would like to call our next speaker, Mr. Iftikhar Kuttar, who will discuss the GST harmonization in Pakistan economy. He is currently serving as advisor on tax policy, administration, research and reforms, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Revenue Authority, and working as CFO of National University of Medical Sciences. Today, he will briefly discuss about the GST harmonization in Pakistan. So I would like to request Mr. Iftikhar Kuttar, please have your time.
Your internet. हमारा कृपया एक ऑन कर दें. कनेक्टेड नहीं करेंगे, कनेक्ट कर दें. आवाज कहाँ गई है सर? आवाज भी नहीं आ रही. मैडम भी कंफ्यूज है.
Madam, is there any problem
We
on
can
your side?
hear
No
you, sir.
problem.
So
Sir, we can listen you.
Okay. Just let me let it up.
सर यहाँ से क्लिक करें. अभी जो आपने डेस्कटॉप पे ये इसको क्लिक करके स्क्रीन शेयर कर दें. शेयर पे क्लिक कर दें. अभी ठीक है. अभी मैडम वहाँ पे आपके पास ऑप्शंस आ रहे हैं. यहाँ से आप स्लाइड चेंज करें. यहाँ से यहाँ क्लिक करेंगे, स्लाइड आपकी नेक्स्ट हो जाएगी.
मैडम आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
Exactly, sir. आपकी आवाज आ रही है.
I will be talking about GST harmonization in Pakistan. एक तो मैं सबको सलाम कहता हूँ और वेलकम करता हूँ और अप्रिशिएट करता हूँ यूनिवर्सिटी को कि दिस इज अ वेरी हॉट टॉपिक व्हिच हैज बीन अंडरटेकन बाय allowed by the university to talk about by me. It is a very I mean a crucial topic for the taxation system of the country. I have made a very simple presentation which I will try to explain. It consists of few slides, and each slide has its own field which it will be covering. GST harmonization is a question which is basically a difficult question for all the 4 provinces and the federation. You know, under the constitution, which is primarily based upon the Indian Government of India Act 1935, services are not taxable, sale taxable by the federation, by the center. They can be taxed only by the provinces. Goods can be taxed by the federation. Up to 2011, the provinces had issued their ordinances under which they had taxed the services, but they have entrusted the collection of sale tax on services to the federation, to the Federal Board of Revenue, and the system was proceeding very smoothly, although there was no buoyancy and no as such expansion in the sale tax on service sector. Then there came 18th Amendment. In 18th Amendment, in the 4th schedule, part number 1, entry number 49, there was a clear-cut exclusion was included that sale tax on services will be charged by the provinces. So again, there was a program in the making that federal government will design a national VAT system, and it will also design provincial VAT system on services, and all the 5 systems will work together, and the federal government will be the sole and dealing with the collection and administration of VAT in Pakistan. But unfortunately, for several political reasons, this program was not accepted by certain circles, and it was not implemented. Later on, another attempt was made in the form of reformed GST, which too failed. Then 7th NFC award came, and in the 7th NFC award, there was a clear-cut provision made that if any province wishes to collect sale tax on services, it may proceed to collect administrative sale tax at provincial level. So the first step was taken by the province of Sindh. Sindh started collection of sale tax on services in 1911. Then this step was followed by Punjab. It started a collection of sale tax on 2012. And then it was followed by KP. KP started in 2013. Then in the last, it was followed by Balochistan, which started sale tax collection in 2015. So the national system of sale tax on goods and services was basically bifurcated between 2 components. One component was being handled by the provinces, which was relating to services, and the other component was handled by the federation, which was relating to services. Although the federal government was collecting sale tax on services as far as the capital territory of Islamabad was concerned. Now, these are second turning point, basically. It's the third turning point. First turning point was when federal excises were replaced by sale tax. Second turning point when sale tax was entrusted to be collected by the federal government. Then there was a third phase was the 7th NFC was basically the third phase. After that, the system, the horizon and landscape of sale tax in the country entirely changed. What was the situation which emerged? One country, 5 jurisdictions, 5 registrations, 5 sale tax rates, structures, 5 sale tax returns, 5 enforcement hands, 5 audit events, 5 hubs of jurisdictional clashes, and above all, 5 fears of taxpayers. This was the situation. Result क्या हुआ? Result discontent in the market. The market was not satisfied with the multiplicity of hands of dealing their businesses from sale tax point of view. Then this feeling was going on amongst all the circles, even in tax authorities also. Then came the IMF advice. I can say it is advice. IMF said that if provinces continue collecting sale tax on services, the system will never get integrated and there will be no oneness of the system of sale tax in the country. There will be multiplication of taxes, multiplicity of compliance modes. Eventually, businesses will suffer and economic growth will suffer. इसका रिजल्ट ये हुआ कि IMF said कि जी let's proceed for the GST harmonization. No, GST harmonization has multi dimensions. वो dimensions क्या हैं GST harmonization की वो मैं अर्ज करता हूँ. मैं थोड़ा सा before I proceed on that topic, let me tell you कि जो मौजूदा truncated system जा रहा है मुल्क में, उसमें there are some myths and some realities. Provinces claim that they have increased collections. No doubt, and in real terms, they have increased collections. And they say that with the increased collections, they are in better place. They are better off to ensure efficiency in their development and welfare activities. But international development partners say that the provincial collections are not keeping harmony with the growth of service sector in the country. Then there is a capacity problem. There are capacity problems in the province. The provinces are still depending upon the manpower of IPR. These are the myths and realities of the system. That on the side of provinces, different claims are being made. On the side of federation, different claims are being made. And on the third side of the international development partners, different observations are being made. Now, what are the basically problematic areas in sale tax system in Pakistan? I mean, other than 5 jurisdictions and 5 things and this and that. Unmatching tax rate brackets. Sindh has 13%, Punjab has 16%, KP has 15%, and Balochistan has 15%, FBR has 17%. And in different provinces, there are different rate brackets. Even in KP, we have 1% rate bracket, 2% rate bracket, 5% rate bracket, 8% rate bracket, 10% rate bracket. Different provinces have different brackets. Problems basically is accruing to the services which are being given by these businesses throughout the country. They are charging different tax in Sindh, they are charging different tax in Punjab, they are charging different tax in KP, they are charging different tax in Balochistan. Then there is another problem, double taxation. The reduced rates are not adjustable against standard rates. And reduced rates, taxpayers are not allowed to take any tax credit of the tax paid on their inputs, which means the tax paid on inputs continues to be part of the price besides the tax payable on the output. The same tax base is being taxed twice, even sometimes thrice. Double taxation is a very, very serious dilemma of this system. Then inter-provincial movement of services. If services originate from Sindh and they terminate in Punjab or they terminate in Balochistan, Punjab and Balochistan says that tax should be paid in their jurisdiction. Sindh says that tax should be given in their jurisdiction because services have originated from their territory. Businesses are confused, rather they are perplexed, and they are very much worried to which jurisdiction they should pay the tax. Double demands are being raised. The jurisdiction of origination is raising demand. The jurisdiction of destination is raising demand. Businesses are suffering. Then jurisdiction, because demand by multiple jurisdictions on the same services, just because of the origination and destination or termination reason, termination factors. The problem of deciding about the competent jurisdiction has become a nightmare for the businesses. Businesses cannot decide to which jurisdiction they should pay the tax. I know the hundreds, thousands of cases where a taxpayer has paid tax in one province, but the other provinces have also raised the demands and they are asking for to pay tax. Otherwise, they will make judgments and recover from his bank accounts. Now, again, province is ready to share the tax between the origination territory and the termination territory. Although sharing is not a bad thing, because there is also already one experience in case of bulk oil road transportation, which was guided by Ministry of Petroleum, and all the jurisdictions agreed. And that in that case, we are sharing on 50-50% basis between the jurisdiction of origination and the jurisdiction of destination. That means sharing is possible. It is not impossible. But at present, except on bulk oil road transportation, provinces are not ready to share tax on any service which is originating from one province but is affecting the expense of all the provinces. The best examples in this regard are, advertisements. Advertisement is telecasted in Karachi. It is run throughout the country, and it affects the consumer choices throughout the country, and it collects its tax from all consumers who consume the products. But tax is being paid only in one province. So, World Bank and IMF have advised Pakistan to go for harmonization of sale tax in Pakistan. Otherwise, they say that this system won't work. Economic growth will be adversely affected. Investments will be affected, and people will be disheartened to undertake new investments. And ultimately, market will suffer, and inflation will increase because of double taxation and because of unmatching tax structures. So, they say that solution lies in national level GST harmonization, in the manner that system should appear cohesively and seamlessly integrated so that singularity of compliance could be achieved despite multiplicity of jurisdictions. Inward-looking revenue appetite should not assassinate the national interests linked with national level resource mobilization, country-wide economic development, and collective social welfare. Nation-building efforts always demand sacrifices, and GST harmonization requires big heart approach from every stakeholder. This is the philosophy which has been predicated by the international development partners to with Pakistan, including Federation and the provinces. Now, they also had certain workshops meetings with the provinces and the FBR, and they expressed their viewpoint, and they also elaborated the international practices, and they also gave advices on how we can proceed. With their help, we have identified 4 major components of GST harmonization. One component is common definition of goods and services. The other component is determination of the principles of taxation, origination versus destination. The third component is agreement on uniform tax rates, tax bases, concessions, and thresholds. The fourth component is one common portal, common tax portal with single registration, with a single tax return or tax declaration. These are the 4 dimensions of the GST harmonization concept which we have developed in Pakistan. Now, initial dialogue on restaurant, catering, toll manufacturing, and bulk oil, road transportation, and construction services have already been taken. Let me explain here that Pakistan has established National Tax Council, just as India has established GST Council. National Tax Council is represented by federal government, by the provinces, and the NTC, head of the NTC is Federal Finance Minister, and provincial finance ministers are its members. Then NTC is helped by its executive committee. Executive committee is a broader forum. It is headed by Federal Finance Secretary, and its membership includes, secretaries, provincial secretaries finance, heads of provincial sales tax authorities, and heads of the provincial excise and taxation departments, and heads of provincial boards of revenues on need basis, as well as advisors of the provincial tax authorities as non-voting members. Several meetings of executive committee have already been taken place. They have agreed on these 4 components, and first of all, they undertook common definition of goods and services. Meanwhile, FBR is working on common tax portal. MOU has already been signed with FBR by all these 4 provinces. When we were discussing common definition of goods and services, the international definition of goods is very clear, services is very clear. That any supply of anything which is not a supply of goods is a supply of service. It is a very simplistic definition which has been adopted by several countries. But in certain countries, this definition has created problems. Even in European Union, this definition has created problems, and their superior courts have given verdicts which have gone against this definition, because there are certain services where utilization of goods is non-avoidable. You cannot avoid. Those services cannot be rendered without the provisioning of goods, without the involvement of goods. Restaurant example, catering is before us. So it was decided that let's first identify the gray areas. 4 gray areas were identified. Restaurants and catering services, toll manufacturing, bulk oil, road transportation, and construction services. Linkage of meetings were held in Islamabad. All the provinces participated. Executive committee debated it, discussed it at length, and it was provisionally recommended that restaurant and catering services should go to provinces. The ongoing equal tax sharing between origination and destination in respect of bulk oil road transportation, which is in vogue since 2018, should continue as FBR had originally consented before the Petroleum Ministry. Construction services will go to the provinces, but provinces will ensure that tangible component is taxed to the federal sale tax and no federal sale tax escapes on them. Toll manufacturing, being a essential part of manufacturing industry, should not be tied upon by the provinces. It should go to Federal Board of Revenue. FBR should collect federal sale tax because toll manufacturing is basically a activity which was traditionally covered in the definition of manufacturing under the central and then federal excise laws. Provinces have agreed on these recommendations, but they have certain caveats added to their consents. They said that all previous notices and judgments of FBR's officers in case of restaurants and catering services should be withdrawn. Made infructuous with bar on refund, no tax collected should be refunded to them. Those collections should be transferred to the respective provinces. Then FBR should instantly make changes in the Sale Tax Act 99, deleting sale taxation on restaurant and catering services. No such transfer from provinces be demanded on toll manufacturing because in respect of toll manufacturing, provinces are going to be a sacrifice because internationally toll manufacturing is treated as contract manufacturing and it is classified as services even by the UN classification. Then they are saying there should be a very firm assurance from the federal government that such situation, such scenario of duplication of or encroachment of provincial jurisdictions will not be created in future. FBR has already signed MOU about common tax portal, where East-Type is a system which cross-match electronically invoices of different jurisdictions. That means the invoice verification system has been electronified by FBR with the participation of the provinces, and this base system will be making base for common tax portal. And once common tax portal is established, only one registration will be required by each business, and they will be filing only one sale tax return for FBR and for all the 4 provinces, 5 jurisdictions, and they will be paying consolidated payments, and system will be dividing them into different provincial and federal heads. Then I have already talked about the guarantee that provinces are also asking for a guarantee that such scenario will not be created in future because provinces have suffered a lot because of the interventions of the field formations of FBR in their jurisdictions. Now, conclusion, this is the state where we are standing as of today, so far as GST harmonization is concerned. My conclusion as a student of the sale tax, I am working in the sale tax for over 30 years, that GST harmonization is not a mission possible. It can be done in Pakistan. If anybody says that it is not possible, I don't agree with it. Because my experience and my understanding of the system is very sure that it is possible. What we need is, we need a collective sincerity, commitment, and efforts. Sacrifices for tax rate rationalizations and jurisdictional clarities are required because there are 4 different standard rates. If we take a mean of these standard rates and apply all the jurisdictions that means only one rate will apply throughout Pakistan. Then big hard approach is required. We should not have an inward looking because we are losing something at the same time. The loser will also be a winner. Peculiarities of regional economics realities need to be suitably adjusted because there are certain provinces who don't want to tax these services which primarily used by the poor category, poor strata of society. They want to keep those services at low rates. Those, I mean, regional economics peculiarities and specificities of factual realities should be accommodated in the system. KP has raised this question and Balochistan has raised this question. And provincial political economy decisions, because there are certain things which certain provinces do not want to tax because they are related with their larger politically decided welfare programs. The provinces say that their political economy decisions should be properly honored, allowed to be honored in the GST harmonization system. You see, the journey of GST harmonization looks very difficult, but it is not impossible. There may be some fluctuations in tax collection, sale tax collections at national and provincial level with the harmonization of GST. But once this harmonized system is stabilized in 2 to 3 years, not only revenue will grow on sustainable and buoyant lines, but also market will be stabilized and market investment attractions will increase, ease of doing business will grow, and people will be, I mean, more receptive towards the system. System will work as if it is one system, although there will be working 5 jurisdictions in that system. It will also facilitate the imports, exports, and local business transactions. With these remarks, I say thank you to you all for hearing me patiently, because we are passing through June, and June is very active for every tax organization. I'm too much bogged down in work. Any question to me?
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Taharkuta, for your great discussion, and you discuss the problems with the tax collection at national and interprovincial level. So having a rich experience in drafting sale tax, federal excise and customs laws, your insights about principles of taxation and GST harmonization regimes are very meaningful for the future of the Pakistan. Further, your suggestion, inward-looking revenue approach is much needed for national level resource mobilization, so countrywide economic development be possible. We agree with your point about to change the GST for restaurants and catering services and so many proposed goods. So GST harmonization is necessary, no doubt, but definitely it requires a big hard approach from every stakeholder. To continue the discussion on budget, we have our third panelist, Mr. Muhammad Adnan Jalil. He is currently serving as president of the Peshawar Chamber of Small Traders and Small Industries. He is also a member of Federation of Pakistan Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Budget Advisory Council for the year 21 to 22. His role as business development leader, technical expert, and agent of social change is absolutely remarkable. So now I would like to request Mr. Muhammad Adnan Jalil, please share your ideas with us.
Assalamu alaikum ji, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim ji. It's so difficult to speak after Kutab Saab and Bakar from SDPI, but I will try my utmost and I will be very candid on those, on certain things. I mean, we need to understand the way the Pakistan is being governed from the last so many years, and the financials calculations were taken care. We do not have much choices in our budget, whether it's the provincial or the federal, and we are bound, we are tied up by the donors, and we are tied up by so many things, and our certain expenditures are there. It cannot be reduced when it comes to the defense, it comes to the other things. And so you got very little amount left for the developmental side, health and medical and education. So this is my name, Ji. I've been introduced. No, I've been, let's see, where's my first slide? Okay. Okay. First time I'm using my slides on this Zoom. I normally don't do these things. Anyhow, as I said earlier, that it's very, we do not have much cushion in our provincial or federal budgets because we do not have, because our dependency is either on grants or on loans. And when you get a loan, the policies and the getting the loan are always very tight and very tough. Okay, this budget, which is, I may call it this budget, and the next year budget is going to be the election budget, is going to be the budget in which it has happened in the past and is going to happen now, it will happen in the future, that is going to be a budget which can gain some vote. Okay, in this budget, increased developmental fund was the strategy, one of the strategy, Prime Minister, special incentive, sustainable economic growth, optimal mobilization of revenue, and expeditious disposal of refund claim. Refund claim is a big issue among the business community when it comes to the sales tax, because they have clear of the last 2 or 3 years refunds are still pending, which are in millions and billions of rupees, and which need to be sorted out, which need to be given back to the exporters, which need to be back to the business community, because their profitability is being hampered because of not getting their refund claims. So I think this is a big chunk which is lying in the finance ministry in Islamabad and FBR, which need to be looked upon. Okay, then the key priorities of the federal government for 21-22 was that inclusive of sustainable economic growth, pro-poor initiative, and social safety net through the ASAN program, vertical and horizontal expansion. PM incentive, including Kamyab Jawan and Kisan program, reduction in inflation and price control, which is a big challenge this country is facing, because inflation is shooting up gradually, and increased developmental spending for more job creation. Now, this is a sector which we need to have looked upon, especially the IT sector. IT can play a major role in this thing. Circular depth is there, it can't go away that easily. It has been improved, but it can't go away easily. Okay, then the housing sector and the construction of industry through Naya Pakistan housing scheme and SME support program. They are looking into the different SME support program, and through our chamber and through the FPCCI, we have given a lot of proposals to the federal and the provincial government. There's one thing I would like to be, Kuttar Sahib is here, I would like to request the provincial government, because what happens when the budget seasons come, the 6 months prior to the budget, the federal government call us to all the chamber FPCCI for the discussion, and they take our proposals. But this practice has never been happening at the provincial level, and I have been advocating from the last so many years that before your budget do come out, have a spare 6 months, 8 months, like call your chambers, FPCCI based in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and all those business community, and take their advice, because who's going to pay the tax? We people are going to pay the tax. So if you're going to take a certain advice from us, and we can be your like a strong hand in coming up with the friendly business policies in such a manner that it should be easy for us to pay our taxes to the Sarkar. Okay, the remittances have gone up, and revenue mobilization is one of the strategy things which they don't want to put any more taxes, but I think they have to go for that, because the irony is this, we do not have a very nice direct taxation. It's about 13-14% of our GDP, and if you come on the per capita, it's about under 5%. So if you look into our different SAARC countries, India, Bangladesh, the figures are much higher. And it's a prime responsibility of the business community to pay their taxes well on time and honestly and properly. But then the funding, they have kept something funding for ex-FATA, Azad Kashmir, GB, and other developmental. Continuation of special incentive led by the Prime Minister, like Kamyab Jawan, Sehat Card, Billion Tree, and Tsunami, etc. Austerity Austerity is a thing which need to be sorted out at the federal and the provincial level, because the amount of money has been spent both at the federal and the provincial level is tremendous. They need to have, they need to restructure their administration, because what happened, एक सेक्रेटरी है, फिर उसके नीचे एडिशनल सेक्रेटरी है, फिर जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी है, फिर सेक्रेटरी है, फिर उसका सेक्रेटरीट। आई थिंक वो ये इतनी बड़ी हायरार्की है कि ये खत्म होने का नाम ही लेती है। 1 month लगते हैं फाइल को अप एंड डाउन, अप एंड डाउन। इफ यू हैव अ कनेक्शन देन यू इट्स 15-20 days. So anyhow, I think there has to be simplified hierarchy within the provincial, the federal government, and less bureaucratic channels, less red tapeism. Or so yeah, I think if that can be sorted out, so I think the provincial and the federal government can save a huge money. Okay, then rationalization of subsidy regime. This is what Bakar said earlier, that there's no way out. You have to give a subsidy. Pakistan is, we always used to know that Pakistan is an agriculture country, and all our agriculture indicators are on the negative side. And then for cotton we import, wheat we are importing, sugar we are importing. So I mean, Bakar ne काफी अच्छा well balanced उसने presentation दी थी कि जी where we are. So all our agricultural land is converting into this housing schemes and this agriculture, this industrial state. I think we must look into the this thing that we should not destroy our agricultural land, and we should give stimulus packages to the farmers and the middleman. There's a lot of debate in the country that to get away with the middleman. I think this will be the right thing. If the middleman goes, the commodities price may go down and the farmer will get more. Okay, and what else? Okay. Increase in the threshold. I mean, this is one thing they have announced at the federal government for the SME sector, from 10 million to 100 million. Well, this is good, but who's going to monitoring the turnover? So our advice was that to the federal government was that कि आप हम पे फिक्स टैक्स का कॉन्सेप्ट ले आए, अगर उसको कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल कवरेज देनी है दे दें, और आप उसमें इनिशियली जो करोड़ों शॉपकीपर्स हैं जो हम टैक्स नहीं देते हैं, आप उनको स्क्वायर फुट के हिसाब से ले लें, उनका कोई लग नहीं। अगर 1,000 रुपए भी एक बंदा साल का महीने का टैक्स देगा तो वो 12,000 दे रहा है। And if we have a fixed thing for 10 years with the increase of 10% per annum, the amount of money you can, we don't need to go to a donors and to get the money. This is the thing which is the untapped market, I think. And this is a good thing, withholding tax to 2 or 2.5 FMG, fast moving consumer goods पे जो हटा दिया गया. This is a good phenomena. Advanced collection on internet, mobile phone proposed to be reduced from 12 to 10 for this year and 8 from the following year. Tax reduction of 35% is in tax payable is proposed for woman entrepreneur who's setting up a new. This is something very good. I think that need to be taken up to at least 50%, क्योंकि एक औरत जब आती है काम करती है उसको जो मसाइल होते हैं, I think this need to be, we will advise the provincial federal government to increase it to 50%. This electric vehicles is again a good thing till 26, but I think we need to take it up to 30 because we don't have the structure over here, we don't have this charging system over here. 850 cc को अगर ये 1000 cc पे ले जाते हैं तो that will be much better कि आपकी जो एक 850 cc की इतनी गाड़ियां पाकिस्तान में है ही नहीं. So if you increase it to 1000, that can give a more dividend to the consumer. But it's a good omen, because my core business of Honda motorcycles, so I mean there might be some impact on that which we have not seen it. 1% reduction in FED on telecommunication, I think it's okay. Withholding tax is 3%. Warehousing is common, like a shared warehousing system with for SME. Well, it's a good thing again. A reduction in FED on telecom, 1% इन्होंने किया. Okay, the problem is this. The problem is this, that the business people do not pay the taxes. The problem is that we look for the shortfalls. And I've been advocating to my own business community through chambers and federation that the time has come that we have to look after this country, because this country needs money. If we have huge expenditure and we have little income, so what's going to happen? The people who are already registered with the FBR or the CAPRA or anything else, all those burdens are going to be piled upon us. So every day we get notices from FBI, every day we get this notice from this thing, and they are literally negotiating with us. Please, yaar, humne aapko 20 ka diya, 50,000 de do. Because there's so much pressure on them. I think we need to have a system in this country that where there should be no interaction with the tax officers or FBI or KPRA. Everything should be automated in such a manner that if we do the input of our data and we should know what we have to do. And there has to be obviously cross checking. आप जरूर करें, audit करें, जरूर करें, randomly करें, लेकिन जितना हमारा इंटरेक्शन कम होगा सरकार के साथ और टैक्स अथॉरिटी, इतना हमारी जिंदगी बड़ी आसान हो जाएगी. Then I mean the provincial government also was well balanced and in a way that इनमें इन्होंने कुछ काफी कैटेगरी 14 कैटेगरीज के टैक्सेस को इन्होंने कम किया है, डिजिटलाइजेशन की बात की है, रजिस्ट्रेशन ड्राइव की बात की है, पॉस सिस्टम इन्होंने कहा है, improve legislative measures हैं, which are why we have always been demanding is this: the tax base has to be increased. हमारा unfortunately the tax base is not there. So मुझ पे प्रेशर है, मुझ पे कभी एक नोटिस है, 2 नोटिस, and every day I am fighting the tax authority. So reduce rate to 10 pro poor segment जो थे जिनकी परफॉर्मेंस अच्छी नहीं थी, ये आपके सामने है जी. आई थिंक मेरी ये बड़ी रिक्वेस्ट होगी कुतुब साहब से भी कि अपनी फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री में ये रिक्वेस्ट करें, जो हमने कई दफा रिक्वेस्ट किया था इनके मिनिस्टर्स को भी, सबको भी, कम एंड सिट विद अस, गिव अस अ टारगेट, हाउ मच डू यू नीड इट, and let's work out a proper proposition कि जी ठीक है, आप ये जो नॉन गुड एक्ट सेगमेंट जो है जहाँ आप इतना वो आपका अगर पाई चार्ट देख लें तो उसमें इतना अच्छा परफॉर्म नहीं कर रहे, आप उनको हटाएं अननेसेसरी टैक्सेस. पिछले साल भी इन्होंने कुछ 20-25 को इन्होंने वो रिड्यूस किया था और कुछ हटाए थे, इस दफा भी किया है, स्टिल अ लॉन्ग वे टू गो, बट अंडर द circumstances in which Pakistan is and the problem we have, I think इससे अच्छा बजट, I mean I would say it was a very balanced budget when it comes to the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, it comes to the federal, but there's always a room to improve. Or abhi ki just now FPCCI has written a letter to the Prime Minister, just now I received it, that in which they have shown their extreme grievances to for not consulting or not listening to the FPCI proposal. उन्होंने जो हमसे proposals ली थी, हमने जो उनको booklet दी थी जिसको हम उनके हमारी proposals को look upon नहीं किया गया हुआ, तो the FPCCI has written a letter to the Prime Minister कि जी आप हमारे साथ बैठें, बात करें और हमारे बहुत से जो issues हैं उनको करें. लेकिन एक चीज़ मेरी रिक्वेस्ट ये होगी कि जी आप जब बजट पेश कर देते हैं अगले दिन से सर्कुलर शुरू हो जाते हैं. आप स्टेट बैंक ने परसों एक सर्कुलर इशू कर दिया है जिसपे उन्होंने कैश सीलिंग को 75,000 से 25,000 करके उस पे 0.1% उस पे टैक्स लगा दिया. अब ये जो होते हैं डेली हिसाब से जो इतने टैक्सेस लगते हैं और बजट्स आते हैं, दैट्स रियली हैम्पर्स, यू नो, वी शुड नॉट डू दीज थिंग्स, वी शुड स्टिक टू द strategies, and it should be not be the strategy for 1 year, should be strategy for 10-15 years. Whoever runs this country, the basic philosophy of our financial system should not be changed. एक आता है, एक 5 साल अच्छा काम करता है, दूसरा आके उसको बदल देता है. आई थिंक वी नीड टू लुक इनटू इट. बाकी ये है कि जी हार्मोनाइजेशन के बाद की कुतुब साहब ने, वी ऑल वांट दिस थिंग जी, टैक्सेशन, सेल टैक्स इज वेरी हाई व्हेन इट कम टू द प्रोविंशियल फेडरल. देयर आर लॉट ऑफ गुड केस स्टडीज ग्लोबली जहां उन्होंने डबल डिजिट से सिंगल डिजिट पे सेल टैक्स को लाए हैं और उनका जो और उसका होराइजन को ब्रॉड किया, तो उससे वो काफी उनके जो सेल टैक्स के रेवेन्यूज थे वो 3-fold इंक्रीज हुए हैं. Yes, we don't have enough money to spend on development, but इसको and education and health, I think we need to work out कि इसको हम कैसे बेहतर करें, agriculture को हम कैसे improve करें, and this is basically a thing. What can I say? But all I have said it right now, and I think there's always a way out, or hopefully अगला जो बजट इनका 5वां जो बजट होगा which will be very close to the elections, I think it will be a far better. और ये हमें आज से कल से इस बजट के अप्रूवल के बाद ये जुलाई से हमारे साथ लग जाए, हमारे साथ बैठे, प्रोविंशियल साइड को मैं कह रहा हूँ खासतौर पे बैठे और हमारे साथ बैठ के हमें अपने टारगेट्स दें और हम आपके टारगेट्स अचीव करके देंगे, लेकिन it has to be in a very very simplified manner. Thank you so much जी.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Your discussion was very right. And the post-budget expectations and concerns of the business community in Pakistan is very important because this is the segment of the class that can affect the employment situation in the country. And so your proposed suggestions to the federal government about increasing the tax base through the accurate imposition and its collection are very important, especially regarding the current situation of the Pakistan's economy. So now the house is open for the question answer session. So I would like to ask the participants, please raise your hand if you have any question.
Yes, the audience house is open for the question answer session. If there is any question, then raise your hand.
Economics.
Yes. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself and raise your questions.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. Go
I
on,
am a
sir.
student of economics. I just want to know that there are traders who pay taxes and there are traders who either do not or they pay less than what is required or what they should pay. Is there any debate in the Chamber of Commerce that they should compel the others that why they are not paying their taxes, and is there any debate in the Chamber of Commerce how the documentation of the economy can be made? Thank you.
Okay, can I answer?
Yes, sir. Go on, please.
Acha. We have been advocating a lot when it comes to the FPCCI and the chambers that there has to be a proper documentation. You cannot be a member of any chamber or your nomination cannot go to the FPCCI, which is the Federation of Pakistan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is apex body, unless you are properly documented to registered with the NTN, must have NTN, or sale tax is not mandatory, but NTN is mandatory. Yes, all the chambers I have been advocating properly, but the problem is this, people are scared of all this thing because when we people are registered with the authorities, we have been harassed day and night from the authority. We get irrelevant notices when it comes to the provincial or the federal. So I think when they look at us, they get scared. What you are in the court, you are fighting your cases, you are negotiating your things, you have the lawyer. So, unless the system is going to be digitalized and where the human relation will not be there, and we should not know. Now what we do, we have to look for the
Please open the mic, sir. Your mic is closed.
मैं कुछ ऐड कर सकता हूँ अगर इजाजत है तो what Adnan साहब has said about this non-compliant, why मतलब I mean tax is not.
Go on, please.
मैं सर एक चंद चीजें अर्ज करता हूँ कि पाकिस्तान का टैक्स सिस्टम, the Pakistan's tax system needs a thorough revamping. What we have done is that we have done a number of patchworks. Now the system has become checkered with so many makeshift, interventions. and temporary interventions which have been over the passage of time made permanent part of the system. That system has lost its efficacy and its receptivity and acceptability by the public. Public will certainly develop tax culture and become more compliant to the tax system, provided the tax system contains facilitative environment. The tax is not in the form of extraction. The conduct of the tax officials is modified and made courteous towards pro business and facilitation of the taxpayers. There are multiple factors. I fully agree with the Naran Sahab that numbers of notices are issued by the system, by the computer, and officers sign those notices without going through their contents, and they eventually reach the taxpayers and embarrass them and put them in pain and in trouble and waste their time. That means that we are basically wasting the time of business, wasting the resources of businesses, and wasting the energy of businesses. जो काम उन्होंने अपने बिजनेस बढ़ाने के लिए जो रिसोर्सेज यूज करने हैं, टाइम और एनर्जी यूज करनी है और टैक्स ज्यादा देना है, वो हम उनका ले लेते हैं टैक्स की एक्सप्लेनेशनों में. But this is too much. I have been trying my best कि there should be some tax implementation ethics in the country, and that ethics should be designed in collaboration with the businesses. That should be designed in collaboration with the chambers, with the federation, and that ethics should be made part of annual performance evaluation of the officials of tax departments for their career building and for their career path. This is my contribution. Thank you, sir.
Very well said, Ji. Very well said.
Yes, sir, you were answering to the questions, sir. Please go on.
Me?
Yes.
वो कुतुब साहब ने बस वो कंप्लीट ही करा दिया जो मैं कहना था.
Okay. Okay. Is there any question from the audience? No.
So we all spoke well, you know. It was in a very simple language and easy language, and everybody understood.
That's true, sir.
Okay, Dr. Shahid, I think we should end the session.
Yes.
Okay. In the end, I am highly thankful to our honorable panelists for their wonderful discussions and policy suggestions for the consistency of budgets with the macroeconomic problems of the Pakistan's economy. And we can conclude the session by having a note of thanks from the Department of Economics. And for that, I would like to request our honorable ma'am, Dr. Rukhsana. Please, ma'am.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, okay. Today's webinar on consistency of the current budget with the prevailing economic conditions of the country is a timely chosen topic. Three worthy speakers shared their knowledge and turned this webinar into a very insightful session. Dr. Bakar Ahmad talked about the current budget 2020 and related it to the macroeconomic conditions of Pakistan's economy. He rightly summed up his post-budget analysis in 5 big messages, including fiscal space for investment in SDGs, efficient spending for SDGs, etc. He has also rightly pointed out the need for evidence-driven budget, which is the requirement of the present time due to COVID-19. Mr. Iftikhar Qutb highlighted the importance of harmonizing the general sales tax in Pakistan. He has identified complexity in the tax system. For example, he talked about double taxation, variations in tax rates across the provinces, non-sharing of taxes from the provinces, harmonization of GST is in fact not an uphill task. The possible solutions are recommendable, and this can be actually done, and this can be chosen. So what is actually the requirement and the message we received from his speech that a big heart approach is required at federal and provincial level. Mr. Muhammad Adnan Jalil discussed the post-budget expectations and concerns of the business community. He highlighted the main features of the Federal Budget 2020 by overviewing the ambitions of the government. He talked about the reductions in tax rates on 10 pro-poor segments at 1% sales tax. Such measures hopefully can positively impact on these businesses. And then also actually he offered for open dialogue to the higher ups who are involved in the tax policies and businesses. So all these three areas which are covered in today's seminar are the most relevant to the current economic situation of Pakistan's economy. Let me now take this opportunity on behalf of the Department of Economics and Statistics at SBE to express my gratitude to Dr. Bakar Ahmad, Mr. Iftikhar Kutab, and Mr. Muhammad Adnan Jalil for gracing the forum. We had an opportunity to hear from them. We thank you for being with us this afternoon. It's a great pleasure. My special thanks also to the organizers of this webinar who have done a wonderful job. I'm also thankful to all the participants who joined this webinar and showed their keen interest in today's discussion. We hope to continue to hold such seminars in future as well. Thank you so much.
मुझे कुछ एक रेजिजुअल स्टेटमेंट देने की इजाजत है।
जी, why not?
मैं एक रिक्वेस्ट करना चाह रहा हूँ यूनिवर्सिटी से कि एक ग्रैंड किस्म का वेबिनार रखें टैक्स रिफॉर्म, टैक्स सिस्टम रिफॉर्म्स पे, और उसमें उन लोगों को भी बुलाएं जो कि बिजनेस कम्युनिटी से ताल्लुक रखते हैं, उन लोगों को भी बुलाएं जो पॉलिटिशियंस हैं, उन लोगों को भी बुलाएं जो टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट से ताल्लुक रखते हैं। और मैं समझता हूँ कि उनको कहा जाए जी कि आप अपने अपनी व्यूज दें और उन व्यूज को फिर यकजा करके एक यूनिवर्सिटी एक पेपर डेवलप करे और वो जो डॉक्यूमेंट डेवलप हो वो बेसिस बनाया जाए मुल्क में टैक्स सिस्टम रिफॉर्म्स का, और उसको बाकायदा एक सैक्रोसैंक्ट बेस लेके और उसके तहत सिस्टम को रिफाइन किया जाए। सिस्टम में रिफाइनमेंट की बहुत ज्यादा जरूरत है। अगर इसी तरह चलते रहे तो ये सिस्टम कोलैप्स कर जाएगा लेटर और सूनर। थैंक यू।
Okay, thank you so much, participants as well as the honorable panelists.